Hey to all metal maniacs, I'm back on the Iron Horde channel with another video. I excuse myself in advance for not publishing any videos last week, but sometimes things happen in life where you have to give priorities to other things. But here I am today and I'm back with some very interesting information with regards to 8 newer bands you should really watch out for. 8 bands who have become a household name within the whole underground scene, mostly because in the wider community they are not so known. So let's go straight to the video where I'll be indicating the reasons behind the bands I have for you today. Let's go! And before jumping to the albums, let me introduce you the aim of this channel. It is mainly to review albums and festivals, suggest bands, delve in the cultural aspect of heavy metal in general and more. So if you're interested in this content, please consider supporting us by subscribing, liking, clicking on the bell, sharing our videos on social media and more. That would really help us out. And going back to the subject of this video, I have been meaning to do a video like this one, which gathers within it a good number of bands which have been formed in the last few years and which bands have released some great albums, yet they have somewhat passed beneath the radar within, so to speak, as I said, the wider metal community. These great bands have brought some fresh ideas, yet they still have that attachment to the history of the genre, to a certain ethos which characterizes the sound, the approach, the all-around package of heavy metal. As I have stated on a number of occasions, I'm not one for drastic changes, but I believe each band has to bring as well its own identity to the music. So you might be asking yourself, what constitutes a new band? For the purposes of this video, I have based my selection on the following, which is, firstly and foremost, the year of formation of the band. Firstly, it has to be a band that was formed around the late years of the 2000 decade. But since the year of formation is not always indicative on how active the band was, I decided also to include bands who have released from 1 to 2 studio albums and not more. Basically, these are bands from the late 2000 decade with 1 or 2 albums released until the present day. I will be listing the bands in chronological order according to the year of formation, from the earliest to the latest. So here we go. First band on this list, formed in 2009 in Rome, Italy, I bring you Vulture's Vengeance. Quite possibly from the newer bands, it is the one that gets me most excited. The kind of band that perfectly captures the 80s heavy metal concept and molds it into its own identity. They are like a blueprint of how one can still create unique metal music. It's not easy to define their music. If I had to mention the main influences I can recognize through their music, they would be Iron Maiden, Wasp and Savatage, with a big dose of epicness. Their music moves into so many territories at the same time that it feels like a time trip back to the 80s. It is music that doesn't get boring and you can easily discover new things with every listen. Mind you, it will take some time to understand the whole greatness on display here, Do not expect to get wholly into the music at the first listen, but slowly more things will be opening up in front of you until you arrive at a point that you will have the full picture, so to speak. Since their formation, the band has released a demo, 2 EPs, a studio album in 2019, which is this one. They are currently signed to Gates of Hell Record, and hopefully the locals will get to see this band play live, as I had organized a gig for them in 2020, but COVID obviously had other ideas. When things will settle down, I will get that gig up and running once more. Flying all the way to Canada now, and it is the turn for some epic heavy metal in the vein of Atlantic Codex, Manowar, Viking era pottery. Yes, it is the turn of Gatekeeper. Formed in 2009 as a project of my good friend Jeff Black, which I send my regards to from here. This band evolved in a way that one could actually feel the progression throughout the years. With every release, I think they got even better as the time passed on, and until this released in 2018, which is East of Sun. Generally, epic metal is focused more on mid-tempo tracks that create a particular mood, but Gatekeeper are able also to include on occasions speed metal, and this is something very particular with this band, kind of unique, the intertwining between the epic side and the more faster parts as well. And the tracks are really composed really well. They touch various moods throughout the album. They create somewhat a unique experience. Even the rough and aggressive focus by JP Abud, and has the ability of elevating the music to a higher level, so to speak. So all in all, a very particular band which tackles quite a conservative subgenre of heavy metal, yet they are able, like I said before, to give it their own imprint. Let's hope for some new material from them with their label Cruz del Sur Music, and one of the best labels around actually, so check out their website and everything related to Cruz del Sur. Next band, and staying in Canada and formed in 2011, I bring you Riot City. Let's just say that if your debut record climbs up my preferences of album of the year for that particular year it is released, then rest assured that I will be following that band very closely in the years to follow. And that is what happened with Riot City. I remember listening to one of the singles released prior to the album, Burn the Night here, from 2019, and I was completely floored. From the album cover, as you can see, to the style adopted in the music, this was like the early 80s Judas Priest albums, but with more energy and that youthful innocence that kind of makes you take a step further. And the album remained on heavy rotation for months on end. I have a lot of faith in this band, and I'm sure their next record, which as far as I know is close to completion or release, will be on the same level, if not better. The vocals of Cale Savvy on the album and on the live setting in the last couple of years from Jordan Jacobs are impressive, and I've seen this band live and they can deliver in that setting as well. For anyone into old school heavy metal, this is a band that definitely cannot be missed. They are currently signed to Greek label No Remorse Records, so check out their records and merchandise from there. Now moving on to the US, firmly staying in the epic metal side, and it is the turn of Eternal Champion, formed in Texas in 2012, and they have released 2 full-length records since then, in 2016 and 2020. It is a band that really hit the ground running. I remember initially, prior to listening to their music and not knowing anything about Michael Moorcock's fantasy universe, I wasn't really convinced by the choice of the band name. Sounded too cheesy to me, and it took me more than usual to put on a track of theirs. Sometimes when there is too much hype about a band, I tend to let that hype pass before starting to listen to the band in question. Anyway, once I did, I could clearly understand the reasoning behind that hype. The epicness flowed like a full-fledged river. Take the track I Am the Hammer from the debut here. It is one of the best epic metal tracks ever made. The sheer macho power it emanates is unbelievable. Their sophomore record retained all that is great about the debut, and quite possibly took it a step further, meaning the band wasn't just a one-hit wonder, and they got plenty of stuff in them to release. And I mean, these 2 records are now synonymous classic epic metal albums. A special mention for vocalist Jason Tarpey, not necessarily for his voice, which isn't bad by any means, but more so for his stage presence, for his ability to interact with the crowd, which is, as I have stated in a number of videos, essential for the success of a band. An epic metal band narrating stories about battles, swords, sorcery and death. You need someone to personificate that kind of attitude, and Jason Tarpey is one of the best around in that. Basically, you need to listen to this as soon as possible. A friend of mine I know, and every time I hear the band, he comes to mind, David Kakia from the legendary brutal death metal band Beheaded. He's a big fan of this band, and that shows you how this music transcends heavy metal genres. It's so good that even if you aren't really so much into this style, there is still things you might like in this music, so check it out as soon as possible. And back to Canada we go, and this time I bring you the band Manikill from Toronto with their mix of traditional heavy and power metal. More precisely, that US power metal style to which I have been referring on numerous occasions throughout my videos. Formed in 2013, they have released one full-length record by the name of No Fear to Persevere. This album kind of passed in the general indifference bar a few underground metal nerds, but it is a record that encapsulates that 80s metal feel in such a great way. For fans of Fates Warning, Jack Panzer, Omen, Savage Grace, Era Parent, Death Dealer, etc., this band you will surely love. It seems to me that there have been some movements within the lineup of these bands in the last few years, and I really hope it doesn't affect their existence, and we need more metal like this with power, attitude, aggressiveness and melody. Although this is a sound which has been done and redone a number of times, yet the music here can still stand on its own, having a clear identity in comparison to other number of bands who are producing music which sounds a bit flat kind of to me. So here's hoping Manikill can deliver some more quality music in the near future. I will surely keep an eye and an ear out there for any news of that, but this is an album which I think it's the most underrated from the lot over here, but it's really good. Enough with North America, just for now maybe, and let's return to Europe, more precisely to Sweden, with the band Mystic. Formed in 2016 and having released one full-length record, which I have over here, aptly titled Mystic as well. They play a style similar to a mix of heavy and speed metal. Immediately, the first band that comes to mind whilst listening to this is the band Acid from Belgium. It is a band I included in the Dutch-Belgian 80s Essential Albums video, and if you have never listened to them, do so after you have finished from this video. This record takes a few listens to fully grasp, because it can feel initially as one long track, but then once the dust settles, you'll be treated to some great speed metal full of attitude and kind of really that no compromise approach, synonymous with 80s underground bands who didn't budge to the pressures of the mainstream metal. I really love the vocals of Julia here. She is able to adapt to the different moments throughout the tracks, interchanging between melody, aggressivity, quieter moments, and that really aids so much in bringing the music to life. So if you are a fan of Early Running Wild, Razor, Exciter, Warlock, Messiah Force, make haste and get this record. This is something you will surely love. Although it brings nothing new to the table, this shows how you can still produce music which is heavily influenced by the 80s, yet still being interesting and refreshing at the same time. Not going too far away now and moving on to Finland, and I decided to include the band Chevalier. Formed in 2016 and having released one full-length record named Destiny Calls, apart from some EPs and demos, Chevalier are not that different from the previous band in the sense that even here we are treated to some great heavy speed metal. The influences are mostly the same as well as the previous band, but maybe with Chevalier there are more hints of US power metal bands like Omen and Savage Grace, to name just a couple of the faster ones. They are actually quite unique in their sound, and each track feels like a story on its own, whereas on most records tracks feel like a continuation of each other, like a chapter in a book. These tracks over here feel like a set of books on their own. It's kind of the analogy I can make to explain this feeling. We are also treated once more to female vocals, which are more heavy on melody on here compared to Mystic. There is also a rough around the edges overall feel with this band as well. It might not be everyone's cup of tea, but to me it is another arrow in their quiver, which makes me go back to their music on more occasions compared to newer bands which have a more polished production. This kind of rough, rawer edge to me appeals more in heavy metal. So another band to keep an eye out for the future. The beginnings look very promising to me, so wish them the best of luck for future releases. I will be attentive to any of that. And as I said before, we are going back to North America and surprise, surprise, going back to Canada. These kids are definitely on fire. I mean, when I say these kids, I'm referring to Canadians and not really this band per se. But in the last few years there have been so many bands coming out of Canada which are of great quality. The band I'm referring here in this video is Chevalier from Calgary, formed in 2017, having released 2 albums. I have one of them over here in a very short period of time. They are a very energetic band on stage. JP Abud on vocals, he was with Gatekeeper as well. On here we have a very heavy metal sound with a big new wave of British heavy metal touch. Definitely the biggest influence is Iron Maiden. There are hints of Judas Priest in some parts, especially the dual lead guitars section. But all in all, you can't go wrong with the music of Chevalier. Energetic, as I said, plenty of fun, melody, catchy choruses, great guitar solos. I mean, you have all the ingredients for a great heavy metal record. I think the way the band took everyone kind of by surprise and immediately went on releasing a studio record, it means these guys know what they are doing and that there's plenty more of great music to come from then, and hopefully very soon. I sincerely hope they give us quality music, as in the last few years there have been so many bands within the new wave of traditional heavy metal scene. A lot of them sound too similar to me, and after a couple of tracks from their albums I lose kind of interest. But these bands, all of them mentioned here, have certain characteristics that make them really stand out. Might be little things, but at least I got to remember their music, and after a while I feel a certain longing to put their record on for yet another listen. So let me know what you think about these records, about these bands, if you agree, if you feel any of these are overhyped or something within those lines. Bombard me with names of newer bands in the comments. I need some suggestions of recent acts and albums which really deserve to be listened to. I actually did this video to entice you all to send me your suggestions, so go ahead right now. Anyways, don't forget to subscribe, click the bell, like, share, the usual. Anyways, and also check out the affiliate links in the description. A small commission for us with no extra expense for you. I guess that should be all for now. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you enjoyed my selection of bands, of albums over here. Stay safe and metal on. Cheers.